The night was unusually quiet at the small community clinic where Maya worked, until the emergency doors burst open just after midnight. Two men carried in a third, his shirt soaked in blood, his face pale and barely conscious. The clinic's usual doctor had already left for the night, leaving Maya, a young nurse still building her experience, suddenly in charge of a situation far beyond anything she had handled before. "Please help him," one of the men said urgently, his voice thick with worry and barely controlled panic. "He can't go to a hospital. Not tonight." Maya's instincts told her something wasn't right. No hospital, urgent secrecy, men dressed in expensive suits despite the chaos around them. But the wounded man on the stretcher needed immediate help, and her training took over instantly. "Put him here," she said firmly, gesturing toward the nearest examination table, pushing aside her hesitation. She worked quickly, cutting away his ruined shirt to examine the wound properly. A deep cut ran along his side, clearly from broken glass or metal, likely from whatever violent accident had brought him here. Blood loss was severe, but thankfully no major organs seemed affected. "I need suture supplies now," she instructed one of the men, who quickly followed her directions despite clearly being unfamiliar with medical procedures. As she carefully cleaned and stitched the wound, the injured man's eyes opened slightly, dazed but sharp despite his pain. He studied her face carefully, as if trying to memorize every detail despite his weakened state. "Where am I?" he asked quietly, his voice rough. "You're safe," Maya reassured him gently, continuing her careful work. "You lost a lot of blood, but you're going to be okay." "Thank you," he whispered, his eyes slowly closing again as exhaustion overtook him. Maya glanced briefly at the men standing nearby, their nervous energy filling the room. "What happened to him?" she asked carefully, though she suspected she wouldn't receive an honest answer. "Car accident," one man said quickly, though his tone suggested otherwise. "It's complicated." Maya decided not to push further, understanding clearly that whatever situation these men were involved in was far more dangerous than a simple road accident. She focused instead on finishing her work, carefully bandaging the wound and setting up a small saline drip to help stabilize him. Throughout the night, Maya stayed close, monitoring his vitals carefully, occasionally checking his temperature and pulse. The two men eventually left quietly, promising to return before dawn, leaving Maya alone with her mysterious patient. Around 3 in the morning, the man woke again, more alert this time, his sharp eyes studying Maya carefully as she adjusted his bandages gently. "You didn't have to stay," he said softly, his voice steadier now. "You're my patient," Maya replied simply, though something about his intense gaze made her slightly nervous. "It's my job to make sure you're okay." He studied her thoughtfully for a moment. Most nurses wouldn't ask so few questions about men who show up bleeding, refusing hospitals. Maya shrugged slightly, focusing on her work rather than his piercing gaze. "Sometimes people have reasons they don't want to share. It's not my place to judge." He seemed surprised by her simple honesty, something clearly rare in the dangerous world he came from. "My name is Nikolai," he offered quietly after a moment. "Maya," she replied simply, offering a small, professional smile. They spoke quietly through the early hours of the morning, Nikolai gradually opening up slightly about harmless details. Favorite foods, places he had traveled, small observations about life that had nothing to do with his clearly dangerous profession. Maya found herself surprisingly at ease with him, despite everything logical telling her to remain cautious. As dawn approached, the men who had originally brought Nikolai returned quietly, urging him gently to prepare for departure. Nikolai reluctantly agreed, though his eyes lingered on Maya with something unreadable, something she couldn't quite explain to herself. "Thank you again," he said softly as his men helped him stand carefully. "For everything." "Take care of yourself," Maya replied genuinely, though inside she felt an unexpected pang of sadness at his departure. Nikolai paused briefly at the door, turning back one final time. "I won't forget this," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight Maya didn't fully understand yet. Then he was gone, disappearing into a dark car waiting outside, leaving Maya standing alone in the quiet clinic, uncertain why she suddenly felt a strange emptiness at his absence. Days turned into weeks, and Maya slowly convinced herself that the strange, quiet connection she felt that night had simply been exhaustion and adrenaline, nothing more. She never expected to see Nikolai again, assuming their paths had crossed only briefly, destined never to intersect again. What Maya didn't know, however, was that outside the clinic that very morning, Nikolai had sat quietly in his car, watching her through the window as she continued her shift, unaware of his lingering presence. "Boss," his driver said carefully, We should go? It's not safe to stay here long. Nikolai nodded slowly, though his eyes remained fixed on Maya a moment longer. Keep an eye on her, he said quietly, his voice firm and decisive. Quietly. She's not to know. His driver glanced at him curiously but nodded without question, already understanding this decision was final. As the car pulled away from the clinic, Nikolai stared out the window one last time, his expression unreadable but his resolve absolute. Whatever had happened that night, Maya had left an impression on him deeper than either of them yet understood, an impression that would quietly shape both of their futures, whether Maya realized it or not. 2 years passed quickly, each one blending quietly into the next. Maya had since moved to a new city, taking a position at a larger hospital where she continued growing steadily in her nursing career. The strange night with the mysterious wounded stranger had slowly faded into a distant memory, something she rarely thought about anymore, except during rare quiet moments alone. She had built herself a simple, comfortable life, a small apartment near the hospital, close friends from work, and a calm daily routine that felt safe and predictable. She had convinced herself completely that the past was exactly where it belonged, behind her. What Maya didn't know was that Nikolai had never truly let her go. From a careful distance, Nikolai had quietly ensured her safety for the past 2 years, assigning a small, discreet team to monitor her without her ever noticing. He never contacted her directly, never allowed himself to interfere in her new life, believing firmly that she deserved peace, far removed from the dangerous world he inhabited daily. Still, every report he received about her, updates on her career, subtle confirmations of her safety and happiness, brought him quiet, private satisfaction, even as his own world grew increasingly complicated and dangerous. Nikolai's organization had grown significantly over those 2 years, expanding influence and power across several cities. But growth brought new dangers, particularly from ambitious rivals eager to challenge his authority. Chief among these threats was a calculating, ruthless man named Anton Voss, someone within Nikolai's own extended network of allies who had begun quietly building power behind the scenes, waiting patiently for the right moment to strike. Boss, Nikolai's second-in-command, Dmitri, said cautiously one evening, entering his office with visible concern, Voss's people have been asking unusual questions lately. About your personal history, past connections, anyone significant to you outside business. Nikolai's expression hardened immediately. What exactly are they looking for? Weaknesses, Dmitri said simply. Something they can use against you directly rather than through business channels. Nikolai's mind immediately flickered toward Maya, though he pushed the thought away quickly, reassuring himself that his careful precautions had kept her identity completely hidden from his enemies. Still, unease settled uncomfortably within him. Increase her security discreetly, Nikolai instructed firmly. Nothing obvious. I don't want her aware of any of this. Dmitri nodded, though he studied his boss carefully, clearly curious about this rare personal concern from a man usually completely focused on business matters alone. Understood, he replied simply, choosing not to ask further questions. Meanwhile, in her new city, Maya's life continued on peacefully, unaware of the tension quietly building around her from a distance. She spent her days working diligently at the hospital, her evenings quietly relaxing with friends or enjoying simple hobbies she had picked up recently, painting small canvases, cooking elaborate meals just for herself, activities that brought her genuine joy and peace. One evening, however, Maya noticed something unusual. A car parked quietly outside her apartment building, present for several nights in a row, always empty when she looked closely. She dismissed it initially as coincidence, though a small, uneasy feeling began growing steadily within her. She mentioned it briefly to her closest friend at the hospital, Rachel, during their lunch break one afternoon. Probably nothing, Rachel reassured her casually. Maybe someone visiting a neighbor. Maya nodded, trying to convince herself of the same thing, though something deep within her instinctively felt cautious, alert. She began paying closer attention to her surroundings, noticing subtle signs she hadn't previously considered. The same car occasionally passing by during her walks home, strangers who seemed oddly familiar despite never actually approaching her. Unbeknownst to Maya, these were simply Nikolai's careful security measures, discreetly protecting her without ever revealing their presence directly. But as Voss's influence grew bolder, these subtle protective measures soon became insufficient to guarantee her safety completely. One quiet afternoon, Dmitri approached Nikolai urgently, his expression grave. "Boss, we have a problem," he said quickly. Voss's men were spotted near Maya's neighborhood yesterday, asking direct questions about her identity. Nikolai's blood ran cold immediately, anger and fear rising sharply within him. "How did they find her?" he demanded, his voice sharp with barely controlled fury. "We're not certain," Dmitri admitted honestly. "But it's clear now, they know about your connection to her, however distant it might have seemed until now." Nikolai's jaw clenched tightly, realizing immediately the severity of the situation. Years of careful, quiet protection had suddenly become insufficient, threatening to expose Maya directly to real, immediate danger. "I need to see her," Nikolai said finally, his voice firm and resolute despite years of deliberately staying away. It's time she knew the truth for her own protection. Dmitri hesitated slightly, understanding clearly the risk involved in this sudden decision. "Are you certain, boss? Revealing yourself now could complicate things significantly." Nikolai nodded firmly, his decision absolute despite the obvious risks. "It's the only way to protect her properly now," he said quietly. "I've stayed away long enough. It's time she finally understands who I really am, and why I've never truly forgotten her." As Nikolai prepared quietly to finally reveal himself directly to Maya after 2 years of careful distance, neither of them realized clearly just how significantly this reunion would change both their lives forever, thrusting Maya suddenly into a dangerous world she had never expected to encounter again. Maya walked home from the hospital that evening exactly as she always did, tired but content after a long shift. The autumn air felt crisp against her skin as she approached her apartment building, her mind already thinking about the simple dinner she planned to cook that night. As she reached her front door, she noticed a man standing quietly near the entrance, waiting patiently, his posture calm but alert. Something about him seemed instantly, strangely familiar, though she couldn't immediately place why. "Maya," the man said quietly, stepping slightly into the light. Maya froze instantly, her heart skipping as recognition finally hit her. "Nikolai?" she whispered, disbelief clear in her voice. He nodded slowly, his expression serious yet gentle. "It's been a long time," he said softly. Maya's mind raced, 1,000 questions flooding her thoughts at once. Why are you here?" she asked, confusion and cautious wariness evident in her tone. "I need to talk to you," Nikolai said carefully. "It's important. Can we go inside?" Maya hesitated, old memories mixing uncomfortably with new uncertainty. Despite her hesitation, something in his eyes, genuine concern, urgency, convinced her to nod slowly, unlocking her apartment door and letting him inside. Once inside, Nikolai wasted no time explaining himself. "2 years ago when you helped me that night, I wasn't just a stranger caught in an accident," he began carefully. "I run a powerful organization, one involved in dangerous, complicated business. Since that night I've quietly ensured your safety from a distance without your knowledge." Maya's expression shifted rapidly from confusion to disbelief, then quickly toward anger. "You've been watching me? For 2 years. To protect you," Nikolai clarified quickly, his voice steady despite her clear frustration. "I never intended to interfere directly in your life. I only wanted to ensure you remained safe, especially given the dangerous nature of my world." Maya stepped back, processing this shocking revelation carefully. "And now? Why reveal yourself now after all this time?" Nikolai's expression grew serious, concern evident clearly in his eyes. "Because recently, a dangerous rival within my organization has discovered your existence," he explained carefully. "They believe hurting you could weaken me personally, using you against me directly." Maya's breath caught sharply, fear replacing her previous anger instantly. "Why would anyone want to hurt me? I don't even know you, not really." "I understand your fear and your confusion," Nikolai said gently, his voice calm despite the tension clearly building within the room. "But you're in serious danger now, whether you fully understand our connection or not. I need you to trust me at least enough to accept protection until this threat passes completely." Maya paced anxiously, trying desperately to process everything she had just learned. "This is insane," she whispered mostly to herself. 2 years ago you were just someone I helped. Now suddenly I'm in danger because of you? I know this is overwhelming," Nikolai said softly, stepping closer carefully, giving her space despite his evident concern. "But please Maya, I promise you, I will do everything necessary to protect you completely." Maya studied him carefully, torn between fear, confusion, and an unexpected lingering trust she still felt toward him despite everything. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked quietly, vulnerability clear beneath her guarded tone. Nikolai's eyes softened slightly, genuine sincerity evident clearly in his expression. "Because 2 years ago, you trusted a stranger enough to help him without hesitation, without judgment," he said gently. I'm asking you now to trust that same instinct again, just this once. Maya remained silent for a long moment, considering carefully everything Nikolai had shared. Despite her fear and confusion, something deep within her recognized clearly the sincerity behind his words, the genuine concern reflected clearly in his eyes. What do you need me to do? She finally asked quietly, resigned reluctantly to accepting his help. Relief flickered briefly across Nikolai's face. For now, allow my men to increase your security discreetly, he said carefully. I'll handle the situation directly, ensuring this threat is neutralized as quickly and safely as possible. Maya nodded slowly, though uncertainty and fear still lingered clearly within her. And after that, she asked carefully, what happens once this danger passes? Nikolai paused, considering his answer carefully before responding honestly. That depends entirely on you, he said softly. I've thought about you often these past 2 years, more than I probably should have, given the complications of my world. If given the chance, I'd like the opportunity to know you properly, without secrets or hidden agendas. Maya felt herself flush slightly at his honesty, uncertain exactly how to respond to such a direct admission. Let's survive this first, she said quietly, though a small, cautious smile touched her lips despite herself. Nikolai nodded, understanding completely. Agreed, he said softly, relief evident clearly in his tone. As Nikolai prepared to leave, ensuring Maya's safety was properly arranged for the night, neither of them fully realized how quickly the situation would soon escalate, forcing them both into far greater danger than either had originally anticipated. Over the next few days, Maya slowly adjusted to her new reality, though unease constantly lingered beneath the surface of her normal routine. Discreet security now followed her quietly wherever she went, to work, to the grocery store, even during her evening walks. She tried her best to continue life normally, though the tension of knowing danger lurked somewhere nearby never fully left her thoughts. During a quiet dinner one evening, Nikolai visited again, this time bringing simple takeout food rather than urgent news, attempting to create a moment of normalcy amid the chaos surrounding them. You didn't have to do this, Maya said, gesturing toward the food, though she appreciated the gesture more than she wanted to admit. I wanted to, Nikolai replied simply, settling comfortably across from her at the small kitchen table. It's been a long time since I've had a quiet dinner without worrying about business. Maya studied him curiously. Tell me something, she said carefully. That night at the clinic 2 years ago, why didn't you just approach me sooner if you were already watching over me? Nikolai's expression turned thoughtful, a hint of vulnerability crossing his usually guarded features. Because the moment I chose to protect you from a distance, I understood clearly the danger my world could bring into your life, he explained honestly. I convinced myself staying away completely was the safest choice for you, even if it meant giving up any chance of getting closer myself. Maya considered his words carefully, understanding slowly the complicated sacrifice behind his decision. That must have been difficult, she said softly, watching from a distance all this time. It was, Nikolai admitted quietly. More than I expected, honestly. There were many nights I considered reaching out, especially after difficult days in my line of work. But I always reminded myself it wasn't fair to bring you into this dangerous life without necessity. Maya nodded slowly, feeling an unexpected wave of empathy toward him despite the complicated circumstances surrounding their reunion. And now, she asked gently, now that necessity has forced your hand? Nikolai looked at her seriously, honesty clear in his gaze. Now I realize clearly that staying away completely was never truly protecting you, he said softly. It only delayed the inevitable danger, without allowing either of us the chance to build something meaningful together. Maya felt herself drawn toward his honesty, despite lingering uncertainty about the dangerous world he represented. This is complicated, she admitted quietly. Trusting you again, especially now, isn't easy. I understand completely, Nikolai reassured her gently. I'm not asking for immediate trust, Maya. Only the chance to earn it properly, this time without secrets. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by an urgent call on Nikolai's phone. He answered quickly, his expression shifting instantly from calm reassurance to sharp alertness. What's happened? He asked urgently, standing abruptly from the table. Maya watched anxiously, her heart pounding as she listened to Nikolai's tense, clipped responses. After ending the call, he turned to her, his expression grave. Voss's men have been spotted directly outside your building, he said firmly. We need to move you somewhere safer immediately. Maya's breath caught sharply, fear rushing through her instantly. Now. Tonight. Yes, Nikolai confirmed urgently. I'm not taking any chances with your safety. Pack only what you absolutely need. We're leaving immediately. Maya moved quickly, adrenaline pushing aside her hesitation as she gathered essential belongings hastily. Nikolai remained close beside her, his presence calm yet alert, clearly prepared for any sudden danger. As they moved quickly toward the door, Nikolai paused briefly, turning to Maya with serious intensity. Stay close to me, he instructed firmly. No matter what happens outside, don't leave my side. Maya nodded quickly, trusting his judgment completely despite her fear. They stepped cautiously into the hallway, Nikolai's security team already positioned protectively around them, weapons discreetly ready beneath their coats. Outside, the street seemed unusually quiet, though tension radiated palpably through the cool night air. Nikolai guided Maya carefully toward a waiting car, his eyes scanning constantly for any sign of danger. Just as they reached the vehicle, a sudden commotion erupted nearby, shouts, followed quickly by gunfire echoing sharply through the quiet neighborhood. Nikolai reacted instantly, pushing Maya protectively behind the car as his security team responded swiftly to the sudden threat. Get down? Nikolai shouted urgently, positioning himself protectively in front of Maya as chaos erupted around them. Maya crouched low, fear gripping her tightly as gunfire continued echoing nearby, her mind racing frantically, trying desperately to understand how quickly her quiet, peaceful life had transformed into genuine danger. Nikolai's men quickly neutralized the immediate threat, though tension remained high as they hastily ushered Maya safely into the car, speeding quickly away from the chaos behind them. Breathing heavily, adrenaline slowly fading, Maya turned toward Nikolai, shock and fear evident clearly in her expression. This is really happening, she whispered, disbelief clear in her voice. This is my life now? Nikolai took her hand gently, his own composure clearly shaken despite his attempt to remain calm and reassuring. I promise you, Maya, he said firmly, I will end this threat completely whatever it takes. You will be safe again, I swear it. Maya nodded slowly, though uncertainty and fear continued lingering heavily within her, aware clearly now that whatever came next would test both her trust and her courage in ways she had never anticipated. Nikolai moved Maya to one of his most secure properties that night, a quiet, heavily guarded house on the outskirts of the city, far removed from prying eyes. Despite the tight security, Maya found it difficult to relax, the sound of gunfire from earlier still echoing sharply in her mind. You're safe here, Nikolai reassured her gently, guiding her into a comfortable bedroom. This place is completely secure. Nobody outside my most trusted circle knows about it. Maya nodded, though exhaustion and lingering fear made it difficult to feel truly reassured. How long will I need to stay here? She asked quietly. Until Voss is dealt with completely, Nikolai said firmly. I won't let this drag on longer than necessary. Over the following days, Nikolai worked tirelessly, coordinating carefully with his most trusted men to locate Voss and eliminate the threat permanently. Maya meanwhile remained at the safe house, her nursing instincts occasionally put to good use treating minor injuries among Nikolai's men, grateful for anything that distracted her from constant worry. Despite the tension, Maya found herself growing steadily closer to Nikolai during quiet evenings they shared together, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been fractured by his long absence. Their conversations grew deeper, more personal, revealing genuine vulnerability beneath both their guarded exteriors. One quiet evening, Dmitri arrived urgently, interrupting a rare peaceful moment between them. Boss, we've located Voss's main base of operations, he reported quickly. But there's a complication. Nikolai's expression sharpened instantly. What kind of complication? Dmitri hesitated slightly before responding. Voss knows we've located his position. He's issued a direct message, he wants a trade. Himself for Maya, believing capturing her personally would force you into a corner. Maya's breath caught sharply, fear rushing through her instantly. He wants to kidnap me directly? That won't happen, Nikolai said firmly, anger evident clearly in his tone. We move first before he has any chance to act. Despite Nikolai's careful planning, Voss proved more resourceful than anticipated. 2 nights later, while Nikolai was away coordinating a critical strategic meeting, Voss's men managed to breach the safe house's outer security, catching the remaining guards off guard in a swift, coordinated attack. Maya was quickly overwhelmed, hooded and taken forcibly before she could even call for help, her fear intensifying rapidly as she was thrown roughly into a waiting vehicle. When Nikolai returned and discovered what had happened, fury unlike anything Dmitri had ever witnessed erupted from him instantly. How did this happen? he demanded furiously, his voice cold and dangerous. They knew our security patterns, Dmitri admitted grimly. This was carefully planned, boss. Voss had inside information. Nikolai's jaw clenched tightly, anger and fear mixing dangerously within him. Find her, he ordered sharply. Now. I don't care what it takes. Meanwhile, Maya awoke groggily in an unfamiliar, dimly lit room, her wrists bound tightly to a chair. Voss stood nearby, studying her carefully, a cold smile playing across his lips. Miss Maya, he said smoothly. I apologize for the rough treatment, but desperate situations call for drastic measures. What do you want from me? Maya asked, fear trembling clearly in her voice despite her attempt at composure. Simple, Voss replied calmly. Nikolai's complete surrender. His organization, his resources, everything he's built, in exchange for your safety. Maya's heart pounded anxiously, though she forced herself to remain outwardly calm. He won't give up everything just for me, she said carefully, though uncertainty colored her words. Voss's smile widened slightly. You'd be surprised what men are willing to sacrifice for love, my dear, he said smoothly. Nikolai has already proven that clearly, hasn't he? Watching over you quietly for 2 years, risking everything recently just to protect you. Maya remained silent, unwilling to give Voss further insight into her complicated relationship with Nikolai. Back at Nikolai's headquarters, tension mounted rapidly as his men worked urgently to locate Maya's exact location. Finally, after hours of tireless effort, Dmitri approached Nikolai with promising news. We found her, boss, he reported quickly. An abandoned factory on the edge of the industrial district. Voss's men are heavily armed, but not overwhelming in numbers. Nikolai's resolve hardened instantly, determination replacing his earlier panic completely. Prepare the team, he ordered firmly. We move immediately. I won't wait any longer. As Nikolai prepared for what would likely become a dangerous, high-stakes rescue mission, he understood clearly that failure wasn't an option this time. Whatever risks lay ahead, however dangerous the confrontation with Voss might become, Nikolai was fully prepared to risk everything to bring Maya home safely. The abandoned factory stood silent under the cold night sky, its broken windows and rusted metal walls hiding the danger within. Nikolai moved carefully through the shadows outside, his men positioned strategically around the perimeter, waiting for his signal. Every muscle in his body was tense, focused entirely on one goal, bringing Maya home safely. Positions confirmed, Dmitri whispered through the earpiece. Voss has roughly a dozen men inside. Maya's being held in the central office area, 2nd floor. Nikolai nodded silently, his mind sharp despite the anger still burning steadily within him. Move quietly, he instructed firmly. No unnecessary risks. Maya's safety comes first, above everything else. Inside the factory, Maya sat quietly, still bound to the chair, her mind racing anxiously as she tried to think of any possible way to help herself. Voss paced nearby, occasionally checking his phone, clearly anticipating Nikolai's arrival. He's taking longer than I expected, Voss muttered, mostly to himself, irritation clear in his tone. Maybe he's smarter than you think, Maya said quietly, unable to fully hide her defiance despite her fear. Maybe he won't fall for such an obvious trap. Voss's eyes narrowed sharply, though he forced a calm smile onto his face. He will, he said confidently. Men like Nikolai always underestimate how far they'll go for someone they care about. Just then the factory's lights flickered briefly before going completely dark, plunging the entire building into sudden chaos. Shouts erupted from downstairs as Nikolai's men moved swiftly, taking advantage of the darkness to disable Voss's guards efficiently and quietly. Voss cursed sharply, quickly pulling out a weapon, using Maya as a makeshift shield as he backed cautiously toward the door. Don't move, he warned Maya harshly, gripping her arm tightly. Suddenly the office door burst open, Nikolai stepping through calmly despite the tense situation, his weapon raised steadily, eyes locked directly onto Voss. Let her go, Voss, Nikolai said firmly, his voice cold and controlled despite the danger clearly visible in his eyes. Voss laughed nervously, though clear tension colored his forced confidence. Or what? You'll shoot, risking her safety along with mine? Nikolai's grip remained steady, his eyes unwavering. I've faced worse odds than this, he said calmly. Don't test how far I'm willing to go. Voss hesitated, clearly uncertain, sensing the seriousness behind Nikolai's calm demeanor. Seizing the brief moment of hesitation, Maya suddenly twisted sharply, using the distraction to break free from Voss's loosened grip, stumbling quickly away from him. Nikolai reacted instantly, firing precisely as Voss raised his weapon in panic, striking him cleanly and ending the immediate threat before it could escalate further. Voss collapsed instantly, his remaining men quickly surrendering as Nikolai's forces secured the building completely. Nikolai rushed immediately to Maya's side, relief flooding through him as he carefully checked to ensure she was unharmed. "Are you okay?" he asked urgently, his voice trembling slightly with barely restrained emotion. Maya nodded, tears of relief and lingering fear finally breaking free. "I'm okay," she whispered shakily. "You came. I told you I would," Nikolai said softly, gently pulling her into a careful, reassuring embrace. "I promised myself I'd never let anything happen to you again." In the days following Voss's defeat, Nikolai's organization quickly stabilized, the immediate threat completely neutralized. Maya, meanwhile, slowly began recovering from the traumatic ordeal, finding comfort and safety in Nikolai's steady, reassuring presence. Sitting quietly together one evening watching the sunset from the balcony of Nikolai's private estate, Maya finally allowed herself to relax fully, safe and secure for the first time in weeks. "What happens now?" she asked softly, glancing at Nikolai beside her. Nikolai considered his answer carefully before responding honestly. "Now we build something real," he said gently. "No more secrets, no more distance. Just honesty and the chance to know each other properly without fear or danger hanging over us." Maya smiled softly, warmth spreading gently through her despite everything she had endured. "I'd like that," she said quietly, genuine happiness clear in her voice for the first time in a very long while. Nikolai reached for her hand gently, holding it firmly, reassuringly. "I never stopped thinking about you, Maya, not once in 2 years," he admitted softly. "And now, finally, I don't have to imagine what could have been. We get to find out together." As the sun set gently behind them, casting warm colors across the quiet evening sky, Maya and Nikolai sat together, finally free from danger, finally ready to build a future defined not by fear or secrecy, but by trust, honesty, and the quiet strength of a love neither of them had ever truly given up on, even during the years they spent apart.